From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Quality early childhood education starts here.
And here.
And here.
We care for kids because we want to make sure that Nebraska thrives.
We need to work and prepare our children for school.
We support families by providing a safe and loving place for learning.
If you care about Nebraska, you have to make sure that every family has access
to quality early childhood education.
We care for kids, but we can't do it alone.
Join us at nebraskacaresforkids.org.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to the 26th season and this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, early childhood education. We have 4 guests joining us to talk about it, 2 via Zoom and 2 here in the studio. We begin our introductions in Johnson Lake with Shauna Worth. Shauna is the Assistant Vice President for Early Childhood Programs with Nebraska Children and Families Foundation's Communities for Kids initiative. On to Gothenburg, Nebraska now, and Colton Venteicher. Colton is the president of the Gothenburg Early Childhood Learning Coalition, an attorney, and publisher of the Gothenburg Leader. Here in the studio, we have Kathleen Gallagher, a PhD. She is the Director of Research and Evaluation at the Buffett Early Childhood Institute at the University of Nebraska. Next to her is Kara Fike, Campaign Manager for We Care for Kids. Thanks to all of you for joining us today and welcome.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Great to be here.
You bet. Kate, I want to start with you. When we talk early childhood education, what are we talking about?
Well, when we take into account that 90% of children's brain growth happens by the age of 5, we know that we really need to take seriously those early learning and development periods. So when we think about the system that makes sure, and the communities and the parents who make sure that children are developing and optimally learning in those early years, we can think about it 2 ways. We can think about the programs and opportunities and activities that children take place where they do the learning and development, and we can think about it as a system in which families are able to work, go to school, and provide for their children and their families in the best way possible and know they're well cared for. So the system of early care and education, early childhood education, is about making sure that children have the opportunities they need and making sure families have what they need to make sure their children are developing well and their families are well. And so when we think about Nebraska, this has to be about families, children, child care programs, and early childhood education programs, and communities.
Okay. Now, in an ideal world, which you've just described, right? Early learning for children would entail what? And we're gonna put up some video here while you're talking about this.
Great. So when we think about ideal learning circumstances, and I'd say this is whether a children is in their home or in an early childhood education program, children and adults are interacting frequently. Adults are using warm language with children, positive language. Children are exploring and playing and encouraged to take little risks and little challenges. You can tell when children are feeling safe, and it's really important that children are feeling safe. There should be rich materials and books and toys, and adults should be encouraging use of them and exploring and learning and always extending their learning, right? Always being challenged. When we think about that, we also need to think about the people providing the education, the teachers and the caregivers. Sometimes we use them interchangeably because you can't care for children without educating them, and you can't educate children without caring for them. So when we think about those teachers, we want to make sure that they have the preparation they need to be doing well and having those warm, language-rich interactions with children. And we want to make sure that they're taken care of, that they need to be well to do well. So we're thinking about a lot when we're thinking about those ideal circumstances. Finally, we want the teachers and the parents to be having warm interactions with each other. We need them to get along, because children need to know that the adults in their environment are working together. So a lot of ideals.
Okay, now Kate, that all sounds great. Unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world. I'd like for you to talk with our viewers about what we're experiencing here in the state of Nebraska.
Yeah. So the reality is that 91% of Nebraska's communities don't have sufficient childcare slots to meet parents' needs. Furthermore, in 12 counties, we don't even have licensed childcare facilities for families to choose from. So we've got a real lack of programs and a real high need. We've also got the fact that in Nebraska, 3/4 of all children under the age of 6 have all available adults in the workforce. Nebraska is a very high family working state. Even with infant and toddlers, most 7 in 10 mothers of infants and toddlers are in the workforce. So we're not talking about just an idea. Nebraska needs high quality early care and education programs.
Or else, what could that mean for the future of these kids?
Or else. So in order to have a healthy, well-functioning, productive citizenry, we need to make sure that children have those early and continuing positive experiences. And right now, we are facing unprecedented stress in families, unprecedented stress among teachers and early childhood providers, caused partly by the dual impact of the pandemic and its economic fallout. But children, if you think about what children are experiencing, are they experiencing those warm one-on-one experiences? Possibly less so when the adults caring for them are under stress. So we need to make sure that children have programs, and we need to make sure that the adults, families, and teachers have what they need to be well and do well, so that we have children who are productive, healthy members of society. It is high stakes and needs our attention.
Kara, what a great segue into you and establishing the need. Kate, thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you.
Kara, enter We Care for Kids. Tell us about this initiative.
Yeah, so it is a collaborative, statewide, community-based effort to build support and raise awareness for quality early childhood education and the early childhood teachers that are providing that care and early learning to our youngest Nebraskans. Like Kate mentioned, there is a tremendous need here in Nebraska. So together we are working to connect families to resources. We want to elevate the early childhood workforce and provide those tools and resources for communities and organizations to spread the word and start those conversations.
Okay, talk to us, Kara, a little bit about your role in all of this.
Of course. Yeah, so I'm the campaign manager. I will say that I have incredible partners and a team of people that I work with, and I'm so thankful for that. I will say this role entails a lot of passion. You know, we are looking to create a surround sound here in Nebraska. We want everyone to know that Nebraska cares for kids. So we are coordinating with our partners, looking to amplify their efforts. I get to talk to so many families, early childhood teachers, communities, listen to their stories and look for opportunities to share those stories more broadly. It's also a lot about relationship building, looking for those unexpected messengers, and of course supporting and participating in community engagement opportunities as well.
Okay, every campaign, at least that I have been a part of, has goals, right?
Oh yeah.
So those bullet points that we're constantly monitoring and making sure that we're working toward.
Yes.
What are those for you?
Yes. So I would say there's 3 main goals. We are looking to connect families to resources so that they know what to look for in a quality program and how to find it in their communities. We are also looking to elevate the early childhood workforce. So asking those educators to share their stories, really be the voice of quality. And then, like I mentioned, amplifying our partners, the resources that are here across our state. So we're providing tools, so folks can spread the word, start those conversations, and so having that toolkit to really kick those conversations off.
I have to ask, and this is probably the place to do it, what is your background that you became involved in something of this magnitude, right?
Yeah, so I guess my background, I spent some time, a few years working at the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, specifically with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, where the educational market was one of my focuses. But then I went on to spend over 7.5 years with a national early childhood nonprofit. I just felt so passionate about the work and the benefits that early childhood education have on children and families that this has just become my passion. So yeah, so when the opportunity arose, I jumped on it because this is something I just care so deeply about.
It's a great next natural step for you, it sounds like. Yeah, so let's talk about this collaborative piece. We're going to be putting up partners while you're talking about the story behind all of these organizations and what it means and takes to pull all of this together.
Oh, yes. So we cannot do this work without our partners. This is very much a grassroots effort. So the organizations and the businesses that you're seeing on the screen right now are folks that have come together who care about early childhood and want to be a part of this effort to raise awareness. I will say that this is a growing list. We're adding to it weekly at this point. And so I would just offer the opportunity for any organization or business who cares about early childhood education to be a part of this effort. We would love to see your name on that list as well.
That is amazing. We are going to be putting a face to at least one of those organizations, actually two of those today. One of them is Shauna Worth. She joins us via Zoom now, so we're going to go ahead and talk to Shauna. Hi there, Shauna.
Hi.
Hey, if you would please talk to our viewers a little bit about the organization that you represent and its initiative.
Yeah, so I work for Nebraska Children and Families Foundation with the Communities for Kids initiative. And Communities for Kids really came about 5 years ago when there was just an overwhelming demand of communities reaching out, needing assistance of just addressing their shortage of quality care and educational opportunities in their where they're from, their hometowns. And some private dollars and now some federal dollars combined with those private dollars, we currently work with 57 communities across the state of Nebraska. I have a very long title, but I like to call myself the technical assistant. There are 6 others who do what I do. And we basically work with communities on a collective impact approach to address their shortage of early care and childhood opportunities. Basically working with communities to engage their stakeholders, trying to figure out what their strengths and gaps are so that they can make informed decisions that are the right decisions for their communities. Utilizing data to make informed decisions and supporting them with how to collect that data, analyze the data, and market it, as well as just connecting communities with resources across the state. So like I said, 57 communities are working with us. 57 communities are doing it 57 different ways. So there is so much learning between them, some peer connections. If we can find funding sources to help communities and just support them along the way of addressing their shortage of early care and educational opportunities.
You know, Shauna, I can't even imagine you and Kara and Kate, you all talk about this like, it's just something that you do every day, not, it's got to be a huge undertaking. Talk to us a little bit about what it takes to be a Shauna Worth and to be able to come to the table and be open, to that many partners, knowing that at the heart of it all are the kids and their families, right?
Yeah, it is. The heart of it is the kids, but we know if the kids are thriving, families are thriving, and communities are thriving. So it is truly it's exciting work. It's fun work. My supervisor always says, if you've seen one community, you've seen one community. So I think the best part is that everybody kind of goes about this in a different way. It is, we divide up the state. So my caseload is mostly in a central Nebraska area. So luckily I get to connect with a lot of those communities that may have a lot of similarities, a lot of the same. But, we will say across the state, everybody has the same message. There is, like Kate had mentioned earlier, just a shortage of quality early care and educators across the state. Parents wanting to work and needing a good place to drop their child off and feel good about so that they're not distracted when at work, and employers who need good employees who can show up every day, be there, concentrate, go through their workday and be a good employee, and then go home and families can be happy and healthy. So it is fun. It's exciting. Every community, has something different going on. I think Colton will have a great explanation of what they're doing there in Gothenburg, which is so exciting too. And he's a great example. I think Colton he works with us very closely when we have communities who maybe want to do something similar to what Gothenburg's doing. Who's the first person we might refer them to is Colton. So I love that part of my work.
Well, and we're going to get to Colton in just a minute, but I do want to ask you, from your vantage point, We Care for Kids, how have you seen it supporting the communities?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is when I talk about we work with communities with a collective impact approach, is having that shared message, because it's really important of those who are involved in the work, those who are trying to get their communities involved, us who are working on this on a statewide level, is to have that shared message, the understanding of why quality care and education is so important. And the public awareness campaign that We Care for Kids offers is all of that shared messaging. Every community all has that same message that they want to tell their neighbors, their aunts, their uncles, their moms, their dads. They want to be able to let people know, even if they don't have children in childcare, how valuable their early care and education providers are for those young kiddos and for their community to thrive. A really great example, though, and this is something that kind of came out of the partnership of being with We Care for Kids, is I personally work with about 9 communities that have some specific work going on with some Spanish-speaking childcare providers, and they were really having a hard time trying to get that message in Spanish that the diversity of early care providers in their communities, it was really a high need, and they really wanted to recruit early care providers into the early childhood field. They want parents to know how important it is to have quality early care providers, and employers who are employing those maybe Spanish-speaking bilingual individuals to understand that those kids need to be in a quality place and not just dropped off at a neighbor's because that's the only options they had. So we partnered with We Care for Kids. They created some great public awareness information for us. They can be identified per community if they want to change kind of that specific part of it. But it was a great partnership because they're the experts, and they know how to interpret and translate the words that they wanted to say into messages that we're going to get across to their communities.
Shauna Worth, thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful. We are going to go now to Gothenburg, Nebraska. Here we are with a map and Colton Venteicher. Colton, welcome. Before we talk about this campaign, let us know what's important to know about Gothenburg.
Sure. Gothenburg is not unlike many of the other small town communities here in the state of Nebraska. So we're a town of about 3,500 people located right off of Interstate 80 between Kearney and North Platte. Our economy is heavily reliant upon agriculture. But as a community, I would say one thing we like to tout ourselves on is we are fairly progressive in terms of economic development and providing a quality of life for our citizenry. We are home to Fortune 500 companies such as Bayer and Frito-Lay. But on the flip side, we want to make sure that our people have the amenities that they need to have a high quality of life. One example of that is just over the last few years, our hospital completed about a $35 million expansion. Part of that was a YMCA that made Gothenburg the smallest community in the country to have a YMCA. So with all of those things, I think we were well suited to tackle this childcare problem.
Well, and I did want to ask you specifically about the challenges that we have been discussing and what those challenges really mean to those of you there. You know, we might think the further we go into the state, the more challenging things are going to become, right? The more likely that's going to be the case. So talk to us a little bit about that.
That's absolutely right. I think as you get farther into these rural communities, we see the capacity issue exacerbated. So in Gothenburg, when we look at the number of children in our community who have all available parents working, and we compare that to the number of capacity licensed spots that we have 70 plus kids in our community that simply don't have access to any childcare. For our community, that's about 40% of that population. So we knew we had a very significant problem. What's the reason for that problem? Really, we look to the fact that we have limited space for our providers. In our small town, we don't have a lot of extra spaces where folks can expand their childcare businesses. They also don't have the budget to really finance that expansion as well. But workforce always becomes an issue, and now on the tail end of the pandemic, it's been an issue that we've seen more and more. That ties back to the fact that in rural communities, yes, we do have a shortage of people, but we also have an inability to pay those people what they're actually worth. And so it's kind of a snowball effect, because oftentimes we have folks that may want to work for one of our child care facilities, even at a lower pay, but guess what? They don't have anywhere to take their kids for childcare while they work. So we see these problems just compile on top of each other.
So Colton, how do you manage that from where you sit? You get up every day and face, right, this particular challenge, among others, I'm sure. What keeps you moving forward?
That's absolutely right. We face it every day. We face it head on. And so going back to the very beginning for these communities that face these issues, we brought everybody to the table, and we all sat down and we set our egos aside. I think that's the most imperative part of this whole conversation, because we're dealing with kids, and we need to find a solution. And so in our community, what we were able to do was bring those different partners, those different stakeholders together, and have the conversations about what ultimately is a sustainable long-term solution for this issue. As we had those conversations, we developed in Gothenburg the concept of the Impact Center. This is a facility that is currently under construction. It's about 40,000 square feet. It's going to serve over 250 kids, 0 all the way up through school-aged after program kids. And it's going to provide high-quality early childhood education to those individuals or to those children, but also provide livable wages for the employees. Now, how do we do that? Again, it comes back to the collaborative efforts of many different organizations throughout our community, including businesses, including our city, our school, and our hospital. So this facility brings in those different groups ultimately to ensure that we can have an operating model that's sustainable. It does include some support from those organizations, but we as a community identified that, okay, this is going to be the solution long-term. And so it's a worthwhile investment.
Colton Venteicher and Shauna Worth joining us via Zoom. I want to thank both of you for doing so. We're going to go ahead and wrap up this discussion here in the studio. Kara, I want to go to you. As you're listening to Shauna and Colton talking about their respective communities and how We Care for Kids has been instrumental in getting everybody to move forward a bit. Mm-hmm. I know it seems trite, but how does that make you as a campaign manager feel?
It feels amazing, and it feels like we're adding value to the important work that these communities are doing. So it feels really good.
Okay, Kate, I need to ask, and I'm sure people are wondering, how is this being funded?
Mm-hmm. Well, we are very fortunate in Nebraska to have received federal funding called the Preschool Child Development Grant, Birth to 5 initiative, that was awarded to Nebraska's Department of Health and Human Services. We are also funded in the campaign through the Holland Institute and through the Buffett Early Childhood Institute. Am I missing anyone?
I think there may be a few smaller ones, but those are the main, the primary funders.
So Communities for Kids and other efforts have leveraged these national initiatives to increase families and communities' access to high-quality early care and education, with a real emphasis on providing supports and an infrastructure for the workforce who are essential to the quality, and each person has talked so beautifully about how our workforce needs to be supported to be well in order to do well in this work. And so it's an extraordinary opportunity, and the campaign is just one fantastic initiative working with community members that are pulling us forward together.
Well, we're going to pull Kara back in because I have to ask the million-dollar question here.
Yeah.
You know this campaign has been a success when what?
Yeah. Again, I look at it in 3 buckets. This campaign has been a success when families know what to look for in a quality program, they know how to find it, and they know how to ask for it if they're unable to find it in their community. It is also a success when we really see early childhood educators as professionals and the ones providing that quality care and early learning. And then I would say, you know, hearing stories like Colton just mentioned in Gothenburg, every community has unique needs. So if other communities are able to hear the stories like Gothenburg and start those conversations around early childhood education in their own communities, and when they're talking about how to meet those needs, that's a success.
Thank you. We have about a minute remaining, Kara. What do the next few days, weeks, months involve for you? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. You know, so I would say right now we are actively looking for those unexpected messengers, those organizations that care about early childhood education or that early childhood education really impacts them. So there is a lot of focused work right now, whether it's reaching out to healthcare organizations or businesses or community programs that work with families. We're really focusing on that effort. And I think you're gonna see some fun things coming up in April with the Week of the Young Child. So lots of engagement there.
Okay, talking early childhood education today with our 2 guests here in the studio, our 2 guests via Zoom. I wanna thank you for joining us today. Wish you and those you're serving the very best moving forward. Folks wanting more information can go to We Care for Kids, NebraskaCaresForKids.org, number 402-226-6500. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at nebraskapublicmedia.org/considerthis. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.